Have you ever noticed how silence can make people uncomfortable? That quiet moment in a conversation, when nobody speaks and the air suddenly feels heavy. Most people try to fill it with words, but the ones who don't often have real strength. Silence is one of the most misunderstood ways of communication. We treat it like nothing, as if it means emptiness. But in truth, silence is a message. Sometimes it says everything that words cannot. Think about it. The moment after someone says they love you. The moment after an argument. The pause before you answer a hard question. Silence is never empty. It's full of emotion, thoughts, and meaning. Psychologists say that when someone doesn't speak, our brain tries to guess why. Are they angry? Are they thinking? Are they judging us? This confusion makes silence very powerful. That's why in an argument, the calm and quiet person usually has control, because silence changes the balance. When one person keeps talking and the other stays quiet, the talker begins to lose confidence. They start to speak more, trying to explain, to fix, to fill the space. The quiet one simply listens, and that gives them power. But silence is not only a tool, it's also a mirror. When you stop talking, you start to hear things you didn't notice before, not only from others, but from yourself. When the noise disappears, your mind becomes clear. That's why many great thinkers, writers, and leaders in history valued silence. When there's less sound, the brain stops reacting and starts reflecting. You move from stress to awareness, and in that calm state, new ideas and emotions can appear. But most of us are addicted to noise. We check our phones, scroll through videos, talk all the time, just to avoid silence. Because silence makes us face what's inside. And often, we don't like what we find. Silence shows our insecurities, fears, and guilt. That's why quiet moments feel uncomfortable. Our thoughts get louder. But learning to be okay with silence is a sign of emotional strength. It means you no longer fear your own thoughts. You don't need to prove anything. You can just be. In relationships, silence is also important. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is simply listen. Not to answer, but to understand. When you stay quiet, you give space for another person to speak honestly. That's when real connection happens. Not in words, but in the pause between them. Of course, silence can hurt too. When people use the silent treatment, it becomes a way to punish or control. The difference is intention. Silence can be care or cruelty. It depends on what fills it. When silence has awareness, it heals. When it has avoidance, it damages. Think about a moment when you said something you later regretted. Maybe you hurt someone. Maybe you said too much. Now imagine if, in that moment, you had chosen silence instead. Silence doesn't hide the truth. It protects it until you are ready to say it in the right way. That's why therapists often stay quiet during conversations. Their silence invites you to keep talking, to explore your own thoughts. And many people find their biggest realizations in those quiet moments. The same happens in life. We want to label everything: success, failure, love, pain. But silence reminds us that not everything needs a name. Some things are meant to be felt, not explained. In a world that rewards loud voices, choosing silence is rare. Social media tells us, speak, post, react. But sometimes the most intelligent reaction is no reaction at all. Because silence cannot be misquoted. It cannot be twisted. It simply exists. That's why strong people, leaders, negotiators, thinkers, use silence well. They know that when you stop talking, others start listening. People lean in, they wonder what you're thinking, and that's how silence creates presence. But here's the lesson. Silence is not about power over others. It's about power within yourself. It helps you pause before reacting, calm down before replying, think before deciding. It gives you control over your emotions, and that changes everything. So here's what we've learned. Use silence when you want clarity, not control. Use it to understand, not to win. And use it to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. Because the more comfortable you are with silence, the more powerful your voice becomes when you finally choose to speak. This is the Ifverse, where awareness becomes understanding. Subscribe. There's so much more to explore. Thank you for watching.